Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Gumbo. That's right, you know I was in New Orleans recently and I promised to do a few recipes inspired by that trip, and this is one of them. A gumbo of duck, andouille sausage, and shellfish. Alright, so first up here I have 2 duck legs that I'm going to brown in a little bit of vegetable oil over medium heat. This is of course going to give the duck some color and flavor, but it's mostly going to render the fat, which we're going to use to make the famous roux, which is the base of my gumbo. So I did about 10 minutes on the skin side, which is where most of the fat is, and maybe, 3 or 4 minutes on that meat side. Okay, at this point I'm going to remove the duck legs to a plate and reserve, leaving all the fat in the pan. I'm going to add a cup of flour, stir that in, and then I have to decide if I need more oil, which you probably will. Vegetable oil. You want to add enough oil to get a very smooth, kind of thin mixture. Okay, I don't want a dry, crumbly roux. I want something that looks, well, like that. Because we're going to cook this a long time. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium-low. I'm going to switch to a wooden spoon. And I'm just going to keep cooking and cooking and cooking this, and it's going to go from white to tan to light brown to like a nutty brown to, I don't really know any other colors of brown. It's going to get deeper and darker, and it's almost going to get to like a brick red color. Isn't that pretty? Which, by the way, that brick red color is where the term roux comes from, or so I've been told. So this took me, believe it or not, about 40 minutes. The deeper the color, the deeper and richer the flavor, but also the less it will thicken your gumbo. So because of that, one trick I like to do, when my roux is done, I'll throw in another couple tablespoons of flour and only cook that for like 2 minutes. So I have a little bit of flour that's not browned, which will help thicken this a little more, okay? So once that addition of flour has cooked a couple minutes, we're going to finish this by slowly whisking in our cold stock or broth. I'm using chicken. I got about 6 cups. By the way, all the measurements, as usual, will be on foodwishes.com. Basically, the heat's still on medium-low. I'm simply going to whisk in about a cup at a time. Because it's a cold stock and a hot roux, it's going to mix in there beautifully with no lumps. So pour some in, whisk it up, pour some in, whisk it up, until all 6 cups have been incorporated. Then just turn it off and set it aside. And then we're on to the other gumbo ingredients, which for me, andouille sausage. I'm going to brown that over medium heat in a deep Dutch oven. As soon as it looks like that, I'm going to throw in my holy trinity. That's right, onions, peppers, celery. I'm using a couple different kinds of peppers. Serrano for some heat and some pasilla. Those are those dark green. Again, all the ingredients will be on Food Wishes. I'm going to stir that into my browned andouille. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, and I'm going to sweat that, again, on medium heat for about 10 minutes until the onions kind of start to turn translucent. And for those of you that don't know, andouille is a smoky, spicy pork sausage, and it's just absolutely perfect for this. All right, so once those vegetables have cooked with the sausage for about 10 minutes, and they look like that, I'm going to throw in some dry thyme, a bay leaf, some cayenne, and a little bit of black pepper. Give that a stir. And then a very controversial ingredient. I'm going to throw in a little bit of diced tomato. Okay, so this is a huge point of contention. Some say always, some say never, some say sometimes. Now, the only thing that most people agree on with a gumbo is it was originally developed to use what you had around. So by that philosophy, tomatoes, if you have them around, which I did, totally appropriate. So I added them. So I stirred in the tomatoes, and then I added this, a smoked ham hock. Look at that big old bone. How's it not going to be good with a big old bone like that in it? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour in our stock roux mixture along with a little bit of water because this is going to cook so long. We need a good amount of liquid to start here. At that point, we can add our duck legs back in, and we want to bring this up to a simmer. So you can turn the heat up. When it comes to a very gentle simmer, I want you to turn it down to low, cover it almost. Leave it cracked. I don't want it covered completely. All right, I want a little bit of steam to escape. Cover it, leave a little bit of an opening, and let that simmer for 4 or 5 hours, very gently. Give it a stir every once in a while, and as it simmers, I want you to skim any fat that comes to the top. So we have a lot of fat in that roux. We got a lot of fat in our ham hock. Those duck legs have fat in it. And you're going to see I got almost a cup of fat off the top here. So while it looked like we had a lot of oil involved in this, a lot does float up to the surface and you get rid of it. So now we're talking about diet food practically. So like I said, simmer that for about 4 hours until your meat is completely tender. That pork will start to fall off that hock. Meat on the duck legs will just be fork tender. At that point, you're going to remove the meat to a bowl. What we're going to do is we're going to pick that meat off the bone and put it back in the gumbo. Next step, I'm going to add some okra, but I'm not going to use fresh okra. I'm not going to use frozen okra. I'm going to use pickled okra. So I like the appearance, I like the taste of okra. I don't necessarily love the texture it gives the gumbo, which some people kind of refer to as slimy. So by cutting up some pickled okra, rinsing it, and adding that, you get a little bit of acidity to balance this richness, but you don't necessarily get any major textural issues. So that's just my little alternative method with the okra. And I can't confirm or deny I did it this way because my store was out of frozen okra. All right, so I'm going to stir the okra in, and like I said, I want to simmer that for about 45 minutes. In the meantime, my meat will have cooled. I can go ahead and pick all the meat off the bones. I'm going to add any pork and duck back to the gumbo. So give that a stir. And again, we're going to let that simmer. We want that okra to cook about 45 minutes just to make sure everything is doing its part. Okay, gumbo is a team effort. All right, last step. I'm going to turn up the heat so it starts boiling a little quicker, and I'm going to add my seafood. I have beautiful Gulf shrimp. Do not insult the gumbo gods by using some kind of imported Southeast Asian shrimp. All right, and I also have some Langoustine tails, which are my substitute for crawfish. Or is it crayfish? Or is it crawdads? How come there's no craydads? Anyway, I'm going to stir that in. That's only going to take like 3 minutes to cook through, and then you're ready to eat. Last thing, optional, a little bit of green onion I like to stir in. And of course you tasted this for seasoning. Salt, pepper, spice. Once I stir that in, this is ready to serve. I'm going to put it in a big old bowl. I'm going to put a scoop of white rice in there, maybe some extra green onion, maybe some cayenne, just, to keep in shape. Anyway, there you go. There's a million ways to make gumbo. There's a million different combinations of foods you can use. I'm not saying this is authentic, so all you Cajuns relax, especially you raging Cajuns. So it's hard to describe how awesome this is, so you're just going to have to make it. You got your smoky, spicy andouille sausage. You got your sweet, sweet shellfish, the shrimp, and the langoustine. Succulent braised duck. Just a magnificent bowl of food. So I hope you give this a try. All the ingredients are on foodwishes.com as usual. And as always, enjoy.